For nearly the past 20 years, the Nissan Rogue has been a solid offering in the mainstream compact family sedan space. However, one area where the company has fallen short in this segment has been in electrified hybrids. The company tried back in 2017 to 2020 with a Rogue hybrid. However, that was a unicorn of a vehicle because it was only offered in a few states and it sold in very limited quantities. Well, for 2026, Nissan is trying again with the introduction of a very first plug-in hybrid version of the Rogue. And as you can see from the looks of this car, if you've seen this look before, it's because it shares a platform. Actually, it's basically the same car as the very excellent Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. So today we're actually out here in Franklin, Tennessee, because we're finally able to get a chance to drive the first ever Rogue plug-in hybrid. And the big question I want answered, has Nissan made enough changes to this vehicle to kind of warrant its Nissan badge? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the styling changes that Nissan made to the Rogue plug-in hybrid, I thought I'd pop the hood and remind you guys what's powering this thing. Now, just like the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid, this vehicle uses the same powertrain, which combines a Mitsubishi-sourced four-cylinder with a pair of electric motors. Now, as you can see underneath the hood, which is supported by a prop rod, you're going to find a Mitsubishi-sourced 2.4-liter naturally aspirated double overhead cam four-cylinder that has their MyVec variable valve timing control. It's augmented by two electric motors that draw their power from a 20 kilowatt-hour battery pack. So that 20 kilowatt-hour battery pack allows this vehicle to get up to 38 miles of all-electric range and get around 26 mpg combined, which is actually around 6 mpg less versus the fuel economy you're going to find in the gas-only powered Rogue, because that has a completely different Nissan-sourced engine. It all goes out through a one-speed reduction gear transmission, although primarily this vehicle functions as an electric vehicle because you get around 131 horsepower from the gas engine, and then you get another 114 horsepower from the electric motor side. That's just the front electric motor. The rear also offers like another 118 horsepower. Combined output, Nissan says, is the same as the Mitsubishi at 248 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque. That makes this vehicle the most powerful production Rogue to ever bear, I guess, that badge, even though this is technically a Mitsubishi. Fuel economy, like I mentioned earlier, is up to 26 mpg combined. With a 14.8 gallon fuel tank, you're looking at around 420 miles of total range. The gas-only side should roughly give you around 380 miles, plus the nearly 40 miles you get on the electric-only side. 0 to 60 performance, Nissan doesn't quote that, but the last Outlander PHEV we tested was actually pretty quick, doing it in around 6.5 seconds. Top speed should be around 110 miles an hour. This vehicle is still rated to tow up to 1,500 pounds, and as this car sits, it certainly is heavy, weighing in at around 4,700 pounds. This is nearly 1,000 pounds heavier versus the gas-only Rogue that I tested earlier this year. But closing the hood, let's go ahead and talk about the exterior styling of this vehicle, because this car, when I look at it, is literally like the automotive equivalent of déjà vu to me, because it looks exactly like the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid, which is not really a bad thing. I actually really like the way the Mitsubishi looks, but at the same time, I was kind of expecting Nissan to take the current Rogue and just transplant the Mitsubishi powertrain into that vehicle, because remember, the Outlander rides on a modified version of the current third generation Rogue, which first debuted back in 2022. All Nissan really did here was change the grille. As you can see, the grille is slightly different with the Nissan logo. Of course, they've blacked out some of the chrome like eyebrows that you found in the Outlander, which I actually think looks better here as kind of like a black chrome. You have this LED daytime running light, which also has an LED turn signal. You have these reflector style LEDs for the low and high beams. And then this vehicle still comes with LED fog lights. You can see there's also some integrated parking sensors, a full 360 camera. This model that we're showing you here is the fully loaded Platinum trim. Nissan will offer this car in the base SL, which is technically kind of like the equivalent of an SEL for the Outlander, while offering the Platinum as the top grade. Now, moving around the side profile, you can see because this is an Outlander plug-in hybrid, essentially, it is bigger versus the gas-only Rogue at 185.4 inches long with a 106-inch long wheelbase. This is roughly 2.5 inches longer than the Outlander or than the Rogue gas-only variant, which allows this vehicle to have a third row. In fact, I think Mitsubishi did a really great job with, giving this vehicle its own Mitsubishi identity, and it's kind of interesting to see Nissan kind of copy that and give us a rebadge of a rebadge. I don't think we've actually seen that before in the US. Now, in terms of the wheels, as you can see, these are essentially the same style designed wheels as the regular, or as the Outlander plug-in hybrid, but they are gloss black. On the Rogue plug-in hybrid, you can see it's riding on a 255 by 45 R20 Bridgestone and Copia tire. You have 13.8-inch rotors all around, along with a fully independent suspension, but no adaptive suspension with this vehicle. Wasn't expecting that at this price point. And Nissan says you have just over 7 inches of ground clearance, which is pretty average for the segment. You can see there's some wheel arch trim here along the side that's unpainted. I appreciate how the side skirt over there is completely fully painted, and you also have features like black painted side mirrors which are power folding, integrated turn signals, and a 360 camera. And then the platinum trim also comes with a panoramic sunroof that actually opens up to vent air, which is a nice touch. And then if you back away from the vehicle here, you can see it's definitely a boxy look. And from this angle here, if you covered up the Nissan badges, you might be fooled into thinking it's basically just the same vehicle as the Outlander plug-in hybrid. In fact, this color also reminds me of the red diamond color that Mitsubishi offers on that car. Now, coming over to the rear, you can see the only change that Nissan made here is just the badging. There's the Nissan logo, of course, that's spelled out boldly across the center. It also boldly says Rogue plug-in hybrid. The one thing that Nissan did, however, take off are the big plug-in hybrid EV badges on the doors on the Mitsubishi. I think this is a cleaner look. I was saying in my last review of the Outlander plug-in hybrid that they need to get rid of those tacky badges. So this to me actually looks better. There is a big platinum badge there, obviously. And you can see the rear bumper has some gloss black. The exhaust tip is kind of tucked underneath over there. And then if you look over here on this side, this is actually where you're going to find the charge port door. And when you open that, you can see, unlike the Mitsubishi, this vehicle does not come with the CHAdeMO DC fast charger. You got that on the SEL premium trims or the top of the line versions of that vehicle. Instead, this vehicle just comes with the J1772. It has a 3.3 kilowatt onboard charger. And this is one of the slower charging plug-in hybrids you're going to find, taking around 7.5 hours to charge this vehicle from empty to full. On a level 2, it'll take roughly 13 hours if you guys have it on a level 1. So this is where I was hoping Nissan would have improved that. But again, this is kind of a stopgap for the vehicle. There is going to be an actual redesigned Rogue showing up for 2027, which will have their actual hybrid tech. So who knows how long this vehicle will actually stick around. You can see the rear spoiler is pretty tasteful. It's got the rear third brake light. The window wiper sits right there at the bottom of the glass. And then in terms of the cargo capacity, you can see a power liftgate is standard equipment on all Rogue plug-in hybrids. And as you can see there, here is the third row that you get with this vehicle. It is one of the most interesting looking third rows with these massive head restraints, which are definitely useful. But as you can see, when you have the third row in place with the second row all the way back, there is virtually no rear seat legroom back here. So this is basically usable in a pinch or for emergencies, but with the third row seat up, you get around 12 cubic feet of cargo space, which is not a lot, but it's certainly still somewhat usable. Most of you are probably going to fold down these massive head restraints and then pull on this and then fold this seat into the which takes a little bit of time to get used to. Pull on this strap here to unlock it. And then if you pull that down, you can see that's what will fold it down. I have a little bit of a bag right here, so let me pick this up so you guys can see what it looks like when it's folded down. You can see most of the times you're going to have it in this configuration, which allows for around 30.8 cubic feet of storage space. If you fold down everything, Nissan says you have around 64.7 cubic feet of space, which is actually less versus what you get in the 2-row Rogue. But again, the hybrid battery pack and that third row takes up a little bit of space, but it certainly is still usable. And again, this marks the return of a third row to the Nissan Rogue, which we haven't seen since the previous generation. So obviously Nissan made very little changes to the exterior design of the Rogue plug-in hybrid, but let's go ahead and hop into the interior and see if they've made any changes there. Before we get inside, however, here's the key fob for the vehicle. As you can see, it's Nissan's latest intelligent access key with the new Nissan logo. It has your typical buttons here for lock, unlock, power liftgate, and then a panic function. No remote start from the fob itself, which is kind of interesting because we've seen that in other Nissan products. As you approach the door handle, as you can see, it's got a traditional pull style with a button here. When you push that button, that locks the door. That also will power fold the mirrors in. When you want to unlock the door, you have to touch the button again, and that's what will unlock the door for you. Some Nissan products offer an auto walk-away lock and unlock function as well. Now, as you can see, looking at the interior of this particular model that I'm showing you here, this has the platinum trim, or this is the platinum trim, so you have the semi-aniline quilted premium leather interior. These seats are also heated. They adjust in 12 different ways for the driver's side, and you also have a 2-person memory function. You get the same thing, surprisingly, on the passenger side, which is really unexpected. These seats, sadly, are not ventilated, which you cannot get any Rogue with ventilated seats, but you can get the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid with ventilated seats for 2026. So it's something, again, that Mitsubishi gets that's nicer that Nissan didn't get with this model. The seats themselves, thankfully, are very comfortable and supportive. I just wish they had the perforations for the ventilation function, but it certainly makes a nice first impression. You can see the door panel has some real leather on the upper portion here with that quilted leather and the contrast stitching. Nice padded area here along with some piano black plastic, aluminum accented door handle. This is kind of like a carbon fiber look Imitation trim, along with these metal accented window switches, which are one touch for all four. Down here it is hard touch plastic, and then you also get a 9-speaker Bose stereo in this car, which supposedly isn't as good as the 12-speaker Yamaha system that you get in the new Mitsubishi. Now, getting inside, you can see it has a pretty easy step-in height. As I get in and shut the door, the door has a pretty solid sounding thunk, which adds to that impression of quality. Now, when you want to start the vehicle up, you can see start-stop button is right here where it says power. Push that. And because this vehicle is a plug-in hybrid, the engine doesn't always come on. Now, it's very cold outside, like 29 degrees, so it's coming on right now to basically turn on the heat and the climate control function. But when you have the vehicle fully charged, it should be able to basically start up with no engine coming on. The engine itself definitely is a little bit noisy. It's that Mitsubishi sourced 4-cylinder. But in terms of the rest of this cabin, you can see Nissan really didn't change anything in this car. In fact, it even has their older tech, which really disappoints me considering this is their tech. Why couldn't they just replace this with the bigger 12-inch display? Again, they wanted to get something to market quick, and as a stopgap vehicle, I guess the cheapest way possible is to just keep everything the way it is. You can see the steering wheel is a Mitsubishi steering wheel with Nissan buttons here, and now it has a Nissan logo there, which really looks interesting. You have a manual tilt telescoping arrangement for the steering wheel, which you can get a pretty comfortable driving position. This trim also includes a head-up display. This fully digital cluster is standard, where it's optional on the Mitsubishi, and it's definitely a nice looking cluster. You can see it's pretty customizable. You can actually change the way that looks by cycling through these buttons here on the steering wheel. You can also go into a special view and change the meter view to kind of have a more traditional layout, which I also really like as well. So that's all very nice. It has its own unique twist in terms of the colors and graphics, which is a little different versus how Nissan does it. But again, Mitsubishi did a great job at differentiating their car, and now it's kind of back into the Nissan land. You can see this is the standard display. It's a 9-inch touchscreen, which includes wireless Apple CarPlay, but wired Android Auto. It includes built-in GPS as well. You can see their older GPS. There's no Google built in, so you don't have the voice commands. Nissan has a newer system in the gas Rogue, but again, this has the older system, which I don't love, but it gets the job done. When you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your full 360 camera, which includes trajectory. It has distance markers, parking sensors. It doesn't have their invisible view display. It also has the older graphics, so it's not quite as nice looking as what you'd find in some of the newer Nissan products, but at least it has your typical hard buttons here. It has, you know, a knob for your tuning and your volume control, and if you push that camera button, you can see it'll kind of do different views as well there with trajectory and whatnot. So it's definitely still great how at least it's standard. You can see in terms of material quality, that leather from the door panel carries over here onto the dash, which is nice. This upper portion is slightly padded. Down here, it's got more of that slightly padded leather look area. And then you can see over down here, you have tri-zone automatic climate control along with your heated seats and heated steering wheel with 3 levels. You can see there's two empty button banks here where the ventilated seats would have been nice. And you also don't have the massaging seats that you get on the top versions of the Mitsubishi. Now down here you can see you have your wireless phone charging pad. It's an older style, no ventilation and whatnot. You do have a USB-A and a USB-C, along with a 12-volt power outlet. This aluminum trim here is genuine aluminum, and it certainly looks nice, a little more upscale. It's got kind of like that brushed aluminum look with the Nissan shifter. This EV button here is where you're gonna be able to switch it between different EV drive modes. On their E-Step is their one-pedal drive feature, which we'll talk about later on in the driving scene. There's a little bit of piano black plastic here, but I like how there's leather here and here, which is a nice touch. Decent sized cup holders, and you have a padded center console here. Open that up, you can see it's a somewhat smaller center console storage bin, but at least you do have a pretty sizable glove box there that's damped but not lined with felt. The seats, as I mentioned earlier, are really comfortable and supportive. And above me, you can see there's just incandescent lighting here. And then you have this panoramic sunroof, which opens up to vent air, which is nice with a retractable shade. You also have a woven material here for the headliner. You have an auto-dimming rearview mirror, but no digital camera mirror. You can see with the headrest up, it certainly blocks your view pretty badly. But overall, you can see with the paddle shifters here, with the E-Step regen braking, their driver assistance tech, this is certainly, a nice cabin. It just reminds you constantly it's got their older tech, which could be a good or a bad thing depending on whether you want the newest tech. But let's go ahead and hop into that backseat area here. I want to show you guys what the space is like, because just like the Outlander, this vehicle offers seating for up to 7, although you're probably not going to want to use that third row pretty often. You can see this second row has the ability to slide forward, it has the ability to recline and fold out of the way. This trim also comes with a retractable sunshade, which is a nice touch for parents that have kids back here, and more of that beautiful leather and quilting back here with that carbon fiber look, hard touch plastic down here. And then in terms of the backseat space, you can see Nissan says you have around 38 inches of legroom back here, which is usable, and you can see you can slide this seat forward and back. Obviously, you can actually slide it almost all the way up to where I have no legroom, and you're going to need it in this position if you actually want to use that third row to put adults back there. You can see you have your own set of rear climate controls, a zone back here, 3-level heated seats, which is a nice touch. The floor is not completely flat, but I can get back here and get comfortable, cross my legs pretty easily. And there's also an armrest that folds down. Actually, the armrest folds down from here, and you pull on this little strap. So it's a little different. It's a little hard to do with one hand, but you can see that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders here, which is a nice touch because I think most people are going to have it like this anyways. And then you can see in terms of the headroom space above me, there's a nice little carve out here. So I have a solid maybe 4 inches of additional headroom clearance, which is definitely nice. Now I actually want to squeeze myself over here because I want to slide this seat forward to that position because I want to get into the back seat third row area, which is always a comical experience for the Mitsubishi. So it's going to be similar here in the Nissan. Now, as you can see, pulling on this lever here and sliding that seat forward reveals this third row, which allows for 2 people to sit back here. However, I'll go ahead and get back here and show you guys how limited the space is. As you can see, I slid this seat forward, which it's still pretty tight. I actually have to move this seat, recline it forward a little bit. But once I do that, you can see at 5'7", I still can't even fit back here. Like my knees and feet are jammed underneath the seat. It's really, really uncomfortable. The seats themselves, they have a lower quality leatherette material. At least you have these big headrests, but as you can see as well, as I sit back here, my head slams into the roof. So it's a very uncomfortable third row. I actually think it's kind of not even necessary, but I guess if you look at it from this angle, if you have really small kids, you want something that's an emergency use, it's nice that it's at least here, but just know that there's so many other competitors, like even the Kia Sorento, which offers a plug-in hybrid that offers a third row, that just offer a much more usable size versus this vehicle. So here we are behind the wheel of the very first plug-in hybrid Nissan Rogue. Being behind the wheel of this car gives me a serious case of deja vu, and that's because I've said it multiple times. This is basically a rebadge of a rebadge. Now, I will say that Mitsubishi went to great lengths to differentiate the Outlander and the Outlander plug-in hybrid from a Nissan Rogue. So it's kind of comical how Nissan basically took this car and was like, we're gonna slap our badges on it. Let's try a quick 0 to 60 run. We have it in power mode right now, in hybrid mode. This gives you the full 248 horsepower. And this car feels quick, and that's just the case, of course, with the Outlander as well. 0 to 60 in 6.87 seconds there. That's with it slightly going uphill a little bit. The last Outlander plug-in hybrid that we tested did it in 6.6 seconds. They are the exact same car, same weight. It's literally just, we're gonna take your car, Mitsubishi, and slap our Nissan badges on it. And they never let you forget that it's a Nissan with the Nissan plug-in hybrid Rogue and Nissan badges everywhere, but still, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just wish Nissan had done more to make this car feel more like a Nissan, because while the interior tech and the switchgear in here reminds me of a Nissan, there's also some aura of this car. It smells like a Mitsubishi. It feels a little softer than some of the Nissans that I would expect them to drive. But regardless, the Rogue plug-in hybrid drives very nice. Just like the Outlander plug-in hybrid, this thing has a nice ride quality. It's very compliant. It's very smooth. It's very comfortable. It has instantaneous power. In fact, this vehicle accelerates pretty much similarly to like an electric vehicle. Aside from the fact that you hear the engine coming on to assist, you can get it out of its power mode here and try to utilize that battery only electric power, which this vehicle can get to 60 in pure electric power alone. I'm not going to try it here because it's dreadfully slow and my time with this car is very, very short. I'll wait until I get one back home to test out for a full week, where we can do our full range of battery testing for this vehicle and whatnot. But it's still a nice car to drive. Visibility is good. I can see out of the front and the side nicely. This A-pillar, though, is on the thicker side. I was hoping it'd be a little thinner there. The view out of the back is also good. I can see out of there just fine, especially when you don't have the third row in place, because the third row has those comically large head restraints, which are there, you know, to help protect your third row passengers' heads, but they get in the way. There's no digital camera rearview mirror to cut past that, so you want to have them stowed basically all the time. And the ride quality is, you know, comfortable. At the same time, it's quiet in here. The engine is a Mitsubishi engine, but it also is surprisingly refined. It's actually less buzzy versus some of the Nissan naturally aspirated engines that I've tested. So Mitsubishi typically builds good engines, so it doesn't surprise me that this powertrain, is refined. And I have to say, compared to the last Outlander plug-in hybrid that I drove, there's something about this car that feels better tuned. The transition between electric and gas is a little bit smoother. The turning radius is nice and tight. The steering is smooth. It's quick responding as well. It's not sporty by any means, but it just gets the job done nicely, and it feels easy to drive on a daily basis. Put my foot down here. You can feel it's a single speed reduction gear transmission, but it obviously will put the engine high into its power band. It is accelerating the vehicle on a combination of the engine and the electric motors. That's something about this car, is it can provide both, or you can drive it in pure electric power alone. So keep that in mind if you guys prefer that. Let's try another quick acceleration run here. There's a little bit of a whine that I'm hearing that I don't like. 6.92 seconds there. That's still with it going slightly more uphill. But again, this is going to be way faster than any other Rogue before that. Because remember, the standard Rogue has that VC turbo 3-cylinder engine, which honestly was a pretty quick powertrain. Not the most refined, but it also had a unique sound with that 3-cylinder. It actually sounded kind of like a V6. And it had a lot more character versus the naturally aspirated 4 that the old Rogue had, or that the Mitsubishi Outlander, the current one, still uses. Although for 2026, there's rumors that, or not rumors, it's confirmed that Mitsubishi will be replacing the engine with a Mitsubishi 4-cylinder turbo, a 1.5 liter. So that'll be a nice new thing to find as well. Let's try one more 0 to 60 run here. Nobody behind us. This is pretty level right here because I want to see if we can get closer to that 6.6 time. 6.84, so we'll take that as our best run. I'll make sure to retest this car when I get one back home for a full week, and I'll also test it out in pure EV mode. But overall, this is now obviously the quickest accelerating Rogue or Mitsu Nissan that you're going to drive. And it's nice to see that, Nissan is offering, and I understand why they wanted to get this to market as quick as possible, as cheap as possible. And as long as you're okay with the fact that it's a rebadged Mitsubishi Outlander, which the Outlander is a rebadged Nissan Rogue, it's a rebadge of a rebadge, which is kind of interesting to tell people. It's an interesting story. The end result is a car that's smooth, it's quiet, refined. Not the most fuel efficient though. I'll have to wait until I get one back home to test, because the last Outlander plug-in hybrid wasn't really great in terms of actual efficiency when you were driving it as a hybrid, but still, with a real-world range of around 38 miles, which I'll test that when I get one back home as well, it's still a really interesting car if you guys are looking to buy a Nissan and you want something that obviously gives you pure electric power and a combination of both with its plug-in hybrid powertrain. Now, there's no denying just how important the Rogue nameplate is here for Nissan in North America. The company consistently sells around 250,000 Rogues every year. So after spending the day driving the new plug-in hybrid version of the car, again, this vehicle is literally a rebadge of a rebadge. You will experience automotive déjà vu, especially if you've had some time in the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid, which is, again, either a good or a bad thing depending on how you look at it, because just like the Outlander plug-in hybrid, this vehicle is a solid plug-in hybrid vehicle. It delivers solidly quick acceleration. 0 to 60 in 6.7 seconds is quick, especially for people who are used to the sluggish acceleration of a Rogue, although the new turbocharged 3-cylinder has been a big improvement over the old naturally aspirated 4-cylinder that you can still get in the Mitsubishi version of the car until 2026. The ride quality of this vehicle is comfortable. It's a little cumbersome, as in it's not very sporty, but it's just very softly sprung and squishy. But I think that's going to be good for the typical buyer that's going to be looking at this car. It's great for those longer road trips. It has really comfortable seats. It has a nice interior, although I am disappointed to see that Nissan had to stick with the older tech with the software. I mean, especially considering it's a Nissan system, I kind of think they should have just pulled the bigger 12.3-inch display from, the Rogue, the actual Rogue, and just grafted onto this vehicle. The 9-inch display is fine, although if you guys use Android Auto, you have to connect it via a wired connection. The CarPlay is wireless. And then it's also missing features like the massaging seats or ventilated seats, which you can get in the Mitsubishi version. So that's, to me, a little bit of a ding on this car. But the back seat is roomy. The third row is, again, only used for children or in emergencies, in a pinch. And the cargo capacity is also average. I mean, really, in this class of vehicle, the RAV4 plug-in hybrid is the one to beat. And it's a car that when the Outlander plug-in hybrid first came out, really targeted, and it kind of offered similar range, a little bit less power, a little bit more of a spacious cabin, but at the same time, the tech feels a little bit dated. But overall, this is an interesting stopgap for Nissan, because while they didn't say how long they're gonna offer this vehicle here in the US, you can expect to pick this vehicle up at your local Nissan dealerships in early 2026. And they're gonna really gauge the longevity of this car based on the demand. So if more and more dealers order this car and people buy it, Nissan may keep it around. But again, there is a fully redesigned version of the Rogue coming for 2027. We should be seeing that vehicle sometime in the second part of 2026. That vehicle will actually launch with their new e-Power technology, which is an e-Power hybrid that combines a 3-cylinder turbo with a powerful electric motor that'll also offer all-wheel drive. That model is targeted to get upper 40 miles per gallon. Nissan also said they'll introduce a gas counterpart of the new Rogue at the same time. Again, that's gonna depend on whether this vehicle does well for them in the States. And it's also gonna depend on the pricing, because as of this video, the company wasn't ready to talk about pricing of this car just yet. They are gonna have those numbers for us, and we'll put them in the screen later if we have those available. But just know the current Rogue starts at around just under 30 grand, goes up to around 45 for the top version. Nissan basically said, expect this model to start where the top version of the gas-powered Rogue ends. So figure $45,000, which would make this car more expensive versus the Outlander plug-in hybrid, which starts at around 40 grand, goes up to around $52,000. But you should know that the Outlander offers a base ES version, which you cannot get here on the Rogue plug-in hybrid. So in reality, for those of you who want the most fully loaded version, you'd rather drive around something with a Nissan badge, because you have better, service availability, you have better dealership network with Nissan versus Mitsubishi. But in general, the Outlander plug-in hybrid is a great vehicle, which means the Rogue plug-in hybrid is also a great vehicle. It just, again, is very much a rebadge of a rebadge, and you could either look at this vehicle as a lazy rebadge or a smart rebadge, because it allowed Nissan to basically get this car to market very quickly and also do it for not much extra money. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my very detailed overview on the brand new first ever 2026 Nissan Rogue plug-in hybrid. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.